the next topic, which is human trafficking. So, when it comes to human trafficking, you need to understand that we will discuss about first the reasons and then we will discuss the sociological perspective. So, what are the reasons for human trafficking? What are the reasons? Vulnerability of people, right? Then, what else can you mention? Vulnerability. Alright, see, basically you can mention few important sociological reasons for increasing human trafficking. One is the vulnerability of the intersectionality aspect. See, when it comes to the intersectionality aspect, you need to understand, first and foremost, people belong to lower class, lower caste and tribal population. They are mostly affected by human trafficking. Right, they are most vulnerable to human trafficking. So that is the kind of intersectionality which is there when it comes to human trafficking. Second is, when it comes to human trafficking, you need to understand the level of that network. There is a kind of a vicious network which is based on social relations, right? If you look into the cases of human trafficking, mostly these agents are people who are known to the victim. There will be some kind of, they will be a far distant relative, or they might be someone who is in their village or who is related to their neighbors or someone like in the circle, right? It's not like these victims are trafficked by someone they do not know at all. Clear? So that social networks are also an important aspect of increasing human trafficking. Because these traffickers have proper social networks through which they identify these vulnerable population and they lure them into, such an instance. Clear? Third is migration. Another problem with human trafficking. Mostly human trafficking affects migrant population. See, migration and human trafficking have very, overlapping link is there, or very close link is there. When you look into the cases of those people who migrate from Bangladesh to Kolkata and who are, subjected to human trafficking, they are being they migrate to Kolkata in search of new livelihood opportunities, right? And someone related to them, someone they know, will tell them that, okay, we will give you a proper job in Kolkata, you come with us, right? And they will do that illegal kind of migration. Once they reach Kolkata, what they will do is, they will sell them to another agent, whereby they will be trafficked. And mostly, women are trafficked for sex work. Okay, and that sex work network is also closely associated or linked to that of human trafficking. So that is the kind of social network as well as the link with migration and displacement. See, displacement is also important because the risk of human trafficking is high among the displaced population, especially those affected by disasters or those affected by any developmental projects. Such people who get displaced are also prone to trafficking. Then finally, poor rehabilitation. See, there is instances of, re-victimization, or that cycle continues, because once that particular victim is kind of, they are escaping from that or they are liberated from that particular, situation. Once they get back to the society, the way society view them, right, the way society isolate them, and due to lack of other alternative opportunities, these people still, become subject to human trafficking. Now, the second time they do that, it will be mostly like with their knowledge, because they don't have any other alternative. Society is not accepting them. They are not getting any kind of alternative, livelihood opportunities, and they readily go and become part of this issue. Clear? Is it clear? So these are the four major sociological reasons that you need to understand for increase in human trafficking issue. Next is the sociological perspective related to it. First is the structural functional perspective. Now here again you can use the system theory. How can you connect it with the system theory? How is it related to system theory? See, when you consider the system theory, okay, we have mentioned that changes in one part of the system will lead to changes in other parts of the system. Similarly, issues in one part of the system will lead to social disequilibrium. Okay, because when it comes to Parsons theory, he mentioned that issues in one part of the system may create social disequilibrium, and that will further be fixed by the social system, right? Because he said that social system is in a moving or state of moving equilibrium. Okay, I think you are aware of that particular concept, right? So here, from a structural functional perspective, these trafficking issues are mostly seen in those societies where their social institutions are not functioning effectively. Say for example, trafficking instances are high among those population who are affected by certain kind of conflicts. Right? Women from conflict-ridden areas are trafficked for sex work. So that means those people who are subject to human trafficking are part of those societies where the social system or social institutions in the societies are not functioning effectively. So that can explain increasing instance of human trafficking from a structural functional perspective. Is it clear? Are you getting the idea? Okay. So the social institutions are weak, as a result instances of human trafficking increases, because weakness in one part of the system can also lead to social disequilibrium. Second, from a Marxian perspective, you can see it as an example of exploitation, right? Or economic exploitation, because mostly these trafficked people are not just used for sex work, they are also used for forced labor. And such instances of forced labor actually reduces the cost of the capitalist, right, at the cost of these poor people. So, for increasing the profit of the capitalist owners, human trafficking is used. So, it is also a kind of or is part of capitalist exploitation. In that sense, you can consider human trafficking as or human trafficking in a Marxian perspective. Next is the conflict perspective. According to conflict perspective, mostly these people who are trafficked belong to vulnerable sections, and those who are trafficking them belong to, or these agents belong to the upper strata. So the power imbalances, see, whenever you are mentioning about the conflict perspective, they mostly focus on the power imbalances in the society. Right? So those who are in a powerful position can actually exploit those who are not in power, or those who do not have enough power. So in such a way, you can see that from a conflict perspective, the instance of human trafficking is result of power imbalances in the society. Those with higher power can exploit those without power, and that leads to human trafficking. Okay? And from a world systems theory or dependency theory, right? Immanuel Wallerstein's world system theory, right? You remember? Dependency theory. In that we have mentioned about, or we have learned about different thinkers, right? Immanuel Wallerstein, Paul Brass, right? So Immanuel Wallerstein's theory is world system theory, where he mentioned that the core nations who belong or who are the developed nations are exploiting the peripheral nations, right? So that core periphery relationship is there. So according to world systems theory or dependency theory, it is the need for getting cheaper products. It is the need for creating cheaper products of the developed world that is leading to instances of human trafficking. Because if you want to produce in a cheaper way, they have to get cheap labor. For cheap labor, they traffic human beings. Clear? So from a dependency theory angle, it is the requirement of cheap labor in a globalized world that leads to human trafficking. Now you can take the example of global sweatshops there. It's kind of an example for even human trafficking, because these, outsourcing agents who take up the work from MNCs, they mostly rely on cheap labor to produce goods, because only then these commission agents or these people can earn profit. So what they do is they use the trafficked people to do such work. So globalization is also a reason for increasing human trafficking. Trafficking in the sense, like when it comes to, the cycle goes like this. There are MNCs who want to produce goods in a cheaper way, right? So that is the reason why they outsource their activities to people or agents belonging to the developing countries. Now, these agents in the developing countries also rely on trafficked people, because human trafficking means it is not just for the sex work, it is also for, forced labor. So they also rely on that network for getting cheap labor so that they can earn more profit. Clear? So these are interrelated. MNCs, their need for cheap products further leads to outsourcing, and outsourcing further leads to informalization as well as use of trafficked labor. Clear? So that is the connection. The next is interactionist perspective. See, when it comes to interactionist perspective, you have to consider human trafficking from, see, I have mentioned already about the re-victimization aspect, right? Here, why does that instance of re-victimization occur? It is because the me part of that victim, right? Me part means it is the socialized part, dominates the I part of the victim, right? Now, the way society view them, the meaning society attaches to trafficking will dominate their view of their own personality. So such view of their identity as well as personality, which is dominated by the view of society, will lead them to re-victimization. Will continue that cycle of trafficking. Because when they get out into the society, the meaning society attaches to human trafficking and the victim influences the thought process as well as the self-identity of the victim. And as such, they will be going back to such, issues again and again. Clear? Are you getting the point? So it is related to that of the meaning that the society attaches to trafficking and the me part of the victim, which dominates the I part, in the sense that society's view of the victim dominates the view of self of the victim. Okay. As a result, they will get re-victimized. Clear? See, that is mainly because of the poor rehabilitation, social rehabilitation. Society attaches a kind of negative notion towards trafficking, and the victims are not properly integrated into the society. That is the reason why they are getting re-victimized. Okay. Then, from a feminist perspective, commodification of women. Right? How does commodification of women lead to human trafficking? Because commodification of women promotes, sex trafficking, right? Prostitution. So as a result, that also leads to human trafficking. See, mostly the cases of human trafficking in majority of the cases are related to women, and majority of the instances it is for sex trafficking, right? Or sex work. So that is how you can connect feminist perspective. And finally, rational choice theory. See, rational choice theory mentions that whenever you are taking a decision, okay, you will always weigh the risk and benefits. If the benefits outweigh the risk, you will take that particular choice. If the risk outweigh the benefits, then you will not take that particular choice. Okay. So human beings in contemporary or modern society are making the rational choices. So whatever instance or whatever choice that we are going to make, we always try to assess the risk as well as the benefit of it. If the risk outweighs the benefit, we will drop it. If the benefit outweighs the risk, we will select it. From that point of view, human trafficking can be explained because the trafficked population are getting re-victimized or are going for such instances because the risk of getting trafficked does not outweigh the benefits, especially for those who are in the poverty. For them, getting out of poverty is more important than that of the exploitation that they face within that trafficking. Right? So, hence, they are going for or they are knowingly being part of trafficking. Okay. So, the underlying point is it is because of the condition that they are going through, especially the extreme levels of poverty, that actually pushes people to go for trafficking even though they know the consequences of it. Because there that risk does not outweigh the benefit, that is the financial resources that they are going to get from it. They have to somehow sustain their life. So they feel that it is better to go for or be part of it rather than dying due to poverty. Yeah, you can mention trafficking for organ donors. See, trafficking is a blanket or umbrella term. It may include sex trafficking, forced labor, child trafficking, you know, organ trafficking. So everything can become. And see, basically, I think in 2019 or something, UPSC have asked this question related to human trafficking. Okay, what are the consequences of high levels of human trafficking or something like that? Okay, so these are the topics that are most likely to be asked in UPSC exam. Okay, clear.